Relationships are at the heart of what it means to be human. They can bring great joy and meaning, but they can also test our boundaries and self-worth. Not every connection is healthy, and when one person gives endlessly while the other only takes, the relationship loses its balance. The challenge is to see these dynamics clearly and understand their impact. As C.S. Lewis once said, "How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you." This wisdom reminds us that recognizing our value is key to building a life filled with authenticity and genuine respect for everyone in our lives. When someone manipulates your generosity or disregards your feelings, it's not a sign of your weakness. It's a failure on their part to show love as it should be given. God created relationships with a purpose, mutual respect, care, and support. In Genesis, Eve is described as a helper suited for Adam, not as someone lesser, but as an equal partner. This divine blueprint is a reminder of what relationships are meant to be. So today we'll reveal 5 warning signs that indicate a man is taking advantage of a woman. These truths are sometimes so subtle that we may mistake them for genuine love. After watching this video, you'll learn to discern huge red flags that indicates a man may be using you. You deserve someone who truly respects and values you, as you were wonderfully and fearfully made by our Father in heaven. Let's dive right in. Sign number 1, manipulative compliments. Compliments are meant to be a gift, an offering of appreciation that uplifts and affirms, but when compliments are used manipulatively, they become a tool for control rather than connection. This kind of flattery carries an ulterior motive, serving the giver's interests rather than genuinely valuing the receiver. C.S. Lewis once observed, "A flatterer is one who tells you your virtues to your face, but talks of your faults behind your back." This quote highlights the empty nature of manipulative praise. While it might seem affirming on the surface, it lacks sincerity, aiming to influence or gain advantage, rather than foster true appreciation. Manipulative compliments are often excessive and poorly timed. A man might shower a woman with exaggerated praise just before asking for a favor or sidestepping responsibility. Statements like, "You're the only one who understands me," or "I don't know how I'd survive without you," may sound romantic, but can carry a hidden expectation. The goal isn't to affirm her worth, it's to lower her defenses or ensure her compliance. Another hallmark of manipulative flattery is its focus on selective attributes. These compliments often target areas where the woman feels vulnerable or unrecognized. For instance, if she has a history of feeling undervalued for her work ethic, he might repeatedly praise her dedication, knowing it strikes a chord. While this may initially feel validating, it can create a dependency where she craves his approval to feel confident. This selective flattery also reveals itself through conditional praise. A man might say, "I love how supportive you are. It's what makes you so special," but only when her support serves his needs. If she withholds that support or sets boundaries, the praise quickly evaporates, leaving her questioning her value in the relationship. Even more insidious is the use of backhanded compliments disguised as care. Statements like, "You're so beautiful, you don't need to try so hard with makeup," or "You're so strong, I know you don't need my help," may appear thoughtful, but subtly undermine her autonomy. These comments can erode her sense of self, making her feel she must conform to his preferences to earn approval. Over time, this pattern creates confusion. On the one hand, she may feel flattered by his words, yet on the other, a nagging sense of manipulation lingers. Genuine compliments come from a place of love and truth, while manipulative ones aim to control and shape behavior. In contrast, true affirmation mirrors the heart of Christ. Jesus saw people fully and spoke words that gave life. When he told the woman with the alabaster jar, "Your faith has saved you, go in peace," his words didn't carry an agenda, they carried truth. A healthy relationship is built on sincere admiration, not calculated praise. If the words spoken to you leave you feeling obligated or unsure of your worth, it's time to examine the intent behind them. Sign number 2, lack of genuine interest. At the core of a meaningful relationship lies the simple yet profound desire to truly know another person, not for what they offer, but for who they are. When genuine interest is absent, the relationship begins to tilt into selfishness, where one person takes while the other pours out, often unnoticed. A man who lacks genuine interest might seem present in the moment, but his engagement is superficial, detached, and transactional. As C.S. Lewis once wrote, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." This truth cuts through the excuses we make for others, reminding us that actions always speak louder than words. A man who is uninterested in your passions, dreams, or struggles is not failing to notice. He is choosing not to care deeply. Genuine interest requires more than polite nods or surface-level conversation. It demands curiosity, empathy, and the effort to step outside oneself. For example, a man who truly values the woman he's with will ask about her goals, celebrate her victories, and lean into her vulnerabilities with compassion. In contrast, a man who lacks this quality might listen just long enough to extract information that serves his needs, then quickly turn the focus back to himself. This dynamic becomes evident over time. Conversations feel one-sided, with the woman doing most of the emotional labor to keep the dialogue alive. When she shares something personal or significant, his responses may be shallow, statements like, "That's nice," or "I see what you mean," that lack thoughtfulness or depth. These interactions leave her feeling unseen and unheard, as if her story exists only in the background of his priorities. One telling sign of this behavior is selective attention. A man who is using someone will often tune in only when the topic benefits him directly. For example, he may show sudden enthusiasm when there's an opportunity that advances his career or boosts his social standing, but remain indifferent to moments that reflect her growth or happiness. This creates a dynamic where his attention feels more like a transaction than a genuine connection. Over time, this lack of interest creates emotional exhaustion. A woman might find herself questioning her worth, wondering if she's asking for too much, when all she wants is to be seen and valued. But the issue is not her. It's the imbalance in the relationship. Real love doesn't require someone to beg for attention. It offers it freely, without hesitation. Jesus modeled this beautifully in his interactions. He didn't just speak with people, he truly saw them. From the woman at the well to Zacchaeus in the tree, he acknowledged their stories and made them feel known. Sign number 3, avoidance of responsibility. Responsibility in a relationship is not optional. It's the cornerstone of trust and partnership. When someone avoids it, they place the burden squarely on the other person, creating an imbalance that slowly erodes the connection. Avoiding responsibility isn't just about failing to help with the dishes or missing appointments. It's a pattern of neglect that shifts emotional, practical, and even spiritual weight onto another while evading accountability. As C.S. Lewis wrote in The Four Loves, to accept responsibility is to voluntarily transform the chaos of potential into the realities of habitable order. When responsibility is avoided, chaos reigns, leaving one person in the relationship to carry the load, while the other walks away unscathed. A man who avoids responsibility often deflects blame. If a woman expresses a concern or points out an issue, his immediate response might be, "You're overreacting," or "If you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that." By reframing the narrative, he shifts the focus from his actions to her reactions, absolving himself while invalidating her feelings. This tactic often comes with minimization. When he fails to fulfill a commitment or forgets something important, he might dismiss it with phrases like, "It's not that big of a deal," or "Why are you making such a fuss?" These responses not only ignore the hurt caused, but also make the woman feel as though her concerns are trivial. Avoiding responsibility also shows up in inconsistency. He might promise grand gestures, commitments, or changes, but fails to follow through. For instance, he may agree to work on improving communication, but revert to old habits when it's time to act. Over time, these broken promises create instability, leaving the woman unsure if she can rely on him for anything substantial. This behavior extends into conflicts. Instead of engaging in meaningful conversations to resolve disagreements, he might stonewall, retreat, or escalate the situation by placing the blame elsewhere. When asked why he hasn't taken steps to address an issue, he might say, "I didn't know what to do," or "I thought you'd handle it." These excuses create an environment where the woman bears the emotional labor of maintaining the relationship. Financial irresponsibility is another frequent sign. He might shirk contributions, leaving her to manage shared expenses or debts. Worse, he may rely on her financial stability without making efforts to contribute equally. When questioned, he could frame it as her being better with money, or dismiss it as something to worry about later. The consequences of avoiding responsibility are far-reaching. Over time, the woman becomes emotionally drained, overburdened, and resentful. Love requires partnership, not servitude. Contrast this with Christ's example. In John 13, Jesus washes his disciples' feet, embodying humility and responsibility in serving others. He didn't deflect or avoid his role. He embraced it, even when it cost him everything. True partnership means shouldering life together. If someone consistently avoids responsibility, they aren't just dodging tasks, they're refusing the gift of being a dependable, loving presence. Sign number 4, exploiting generosity. Generosity is one of the purest forms of love. It reflects a heart that is willing to give, serve, and uplift others. But when generosity is exploited, it ceases to be a bridge for connection and becomes a means of manipulation. Exploitation twists kindness into obligation, leaving one person depleted while the other reaps the benefits. C.S. Lewis once said, "It's not how much we give, but how much love we put into giving." But what happens when the love you give is met with indifference or entitlement? Exploitation thrives in this imbalance, taking advantage of a selfless heart without reciprocation. A man who exploits a woman's generosity doesn't always start with grand demands. Instead, it begins subtly, asking for small favors, borrowing money just this once, or relying on her to handle responsibilities he chooses to avoid. Initially, these requests might seem harmless, even reasonable, but over time, they increase in frequency and scope, creating a pattern of dependency that shifts the weight of the relationship entirely onto her shoulders. One of the clearest examples is financial exploitation. He might regularly ask for loans, expect her to cover shared expenses, or lean on her financial stability without showing any effort to contribute equally. If she hesitates, he may play the victim, saying things like, "I'm just going through a hard time," or "You're the only one who believes in me." These statements are designed to guilt her into continuing the cycle, even at her own expense. Emotional exploitation often accompanies this pattern. He may lean on her for constant validation, encouragement, and support while offering little in return. When she needs the same care, He might dismiss her feelings or be completely unavailable. Over time, this creates an emotional vacuum where she pours out endlessly without receiving anything to refill her spirit. Exploiting generosity can also take the form of time and effort. He may expect her to handle household chores, run errands, or organize social events while he remains passive or indifferent. Tasks that should be shared become her responsibility alone. Worse, her efforts are often taken for granted, rarely acknowledged or appreciated. The manipulation of compassion is another insidious tactic. By framing his struggles in a way that appeals to her empathy, he ensures she feels obligated to keep giving, even when it comes at great personal cost. Statements like, "I thought you were different from everyone else," or "I have no one else to turn to," deepen her sense of responsibility while masking his unwillingness to take responsibility for himself. This pattern leaves her drained, financially, emotionally, and mentally. True love does not exploit. It honors the sacrifices made and seeks to give in return. In Matthew 5:41, Jesus teaches, "If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2." But even this teaching emphasizes willingness, not coercion. A relationship built on manipulation violates the spirit of giving. Generosity is sacred. If your kindness is being taken for granted, it's time to recognize your worth and protect what God has placed in your heart. Sign number 5, emotional inconsistency. Emotional inconsistency is one of the most disorienting behaviors in a relationship. It creates a cycle of connection and withdrawal that leaves one person constantly questioning where they stand. A man who exhibits emotional inconsistency alternates between moments of affection and detachment, making the relationship feel like a roller coaster, thrilling at times, but ultimately unstable and exhausting. As C.S. Lewis wrote, "Don't surrender all your joy for an idea you used to have about yourself that isn't true anymore." Emotional inconsistency thrives on this surrender, where a woman clings to fleeting moments of joy while enduring long stretches of uncertainty and doubt. In the high points, a man might seem deeply invested, attentive, caring, and eager to engage in meaningful conversations. He may shower her with compliments, make plans for the future, and offer a glimpse of the connection she longs for. In these moments, she feels valued and hopeful, as though the relationship is finally on solid ground. But the lows come without warning. He withdraws, becomes distant, or even avoids contact altogether. Texts go unanswered, conversations feel surface level, and his once consistent presence fades into sporadic interactions. This shift leaves her questioning herself. Did I do something wrong? Am I asking for too much? The unpredictability is the most damaging aspect of emotional inconsistency. There's no clear explanation for his changes in behavior, leaving her to search for answers that don't exist. This emotional uncertainty turns into a constant mental calculation as she tries to anticipate his moods, avoid upsetting him, or recreate the moments of connection. Communication often mirrors this inconsistency. During his engaged phases, he might be quick to respond, initiate conversations and express interest in her life. But during his detached phases, his responses become curt, delayed, or absent altogether. This erratic communication pattern leaves her feeling unsure of where she stands in the relationship. Physical presence doesn't always equal emotional presence. A man who is emotionally inconsistent might spend time with her but seem distracted or disengaged. For example, he might plan a date night but spend the entire evening glued to his phone, or agree to spend time together but act as though he'd rather be anywhere else. This behavior isn't just confusing, it's controlling. By keeping her emotionally off balance, he creates a dynamic where she feels compelled to work harder to maintain his affection. She might suppress her own needs, bend over backward to please him, or settle for less than she deserves, all in the hope of recapturing the moments when he was fully present. True love doesn't leave someone guessing. It offers consistency, stability, and reassurance. As 1 Corinthians 13 reminds us, love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. If you find yourself chasing after fleeting moments of affection, pause and reflect. Is this love or is it manipulation? When relationships stray from the mutual respect, love and care God intended, they become draining rather than life-giving. Today we've examined 5 behaviors: lack of genuine interest, manipulative compliments, avoidance of responsibility, exploiting generosity, and emotional inconsistency. These patterns are not signs of love, but of someone using another for their own gain. As C.S. Lewis wisely said, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. God created you with immense value, and no one has the right to diminish your worth or take advantage of your kindness." Healthy relationships honor who you are, just as God does. If you've recognized these behaviors in your life, know that you're not alone, and God's love offers freedom and restoration. Set boundaries, lean into His wisdom, and seek relationships that reflect His design for mutuality and respect. Thank you for watching this message all the way through. If it spoke to your heart or reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, please share this with them. Together, we can bring hope and truth to those seeking healing and clarity. May God bless you richly and guide you toward relationships that honor Him. God bless you forever.